guys, so today I am embarking on a project of making authentic Japanese tonkatsu ramen. On our trip, we ate ramen at multiple delicious places, and there's a lot that goes into it as I've been researching. So I went out yesterday and got a lot of the ingredients. I have to go out today and get some more, but I wanted to explain to you a little bit what I'm doing. So this is a broth that we've had cooking for, about 5 hours now. This is a traditional Japanese tonkatsu broth, which is made with pork bones. So this pot right here is going to cook for 10 to 12 hours. So we're in hour 5 or 6 now. And this pot has just about 5 pounds of pork bones that we got from Orlando Meats over off of Virginia by Mills area, where I try to get all of my bones whenever I make broth. They're amazing. Some ginger, some garlic, and a couple of onions. And you just kind of let that go at a rolling boil for 10 to 12 hours. You can see already it's getting really kind of like thick and super decadent. So here's kind of some of the bones that are in there. There's a whole bunch of them. And these are all Berkshire pork bones from Ocala that I got from Orlando Meats. So then the next thing that we're going to do, so that's the base of the broth. That's the broth that's going to go for the ramen. And now what I'm getting ready to do is to make the, Alexa off, is to make the, give me 1 second because I have carrot cakes in here that are about to come out. So I have to change the oven temp for the meat. So the next thing is the char siu pork, which is a traditional part of Japanese ramen when you have it that way. So I got this beautiful pork belly, also from Orlando Meats. I picked this up yesterday. This is about 3 pounds. You can see just the really nice, really good quality, very meaty. It's still fatty, it's supposed to be, but it's really meaty. I had them leave the skin on. So when you're making things like this, you want them to leave the skin on, because that, as it cooks, the skin's going to be on the outside, and it's going to add a lot of flavor. All the fattiness under the skin just adds a ton of flavor, and it kind of cooks out and gives it, like, the skin will have a really nice, like, velvety, not crispy, like I would normally cook pork belly, but just a nice velvety mouthfeel. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to roll this up with some twine I have here, and I'm not a butcher, so I'm just going to wing it. You want to roll it up as tight as you can. I'm going to start, you can see this is wider and this is narrower. So I'm going to roll really, really tight. It's kind of slippery, so it's hard. And I'm going to roll the narrower side on the inside, right? You should be able to get at least one really good rotation out of here. Now, it's going to tighten up even more when you actually tighten the twine. So you get like your initial tightness there. Here. And I'm just going to do one initial tie. And this could be totally wrong in like butcher's terminology, but it's going to work. It's going to keep it in that cylinder that I want it in. So I'm just going to kind of keep crisscrossing here, keeping it as tight as I can. And then tying every one. I'll probably do like maybe 1 or 2 more. You just want it to stay in this kind of rolled cylinder while it's cooking. So this is going to cook for about 5 hours. What time is it right now? 2. Yeah, so it's going to cook for anywhere between 4 and 5 hours, depending on when it's done. So that is about what I want it to be, right? That'll do. That'll do. I'm going to wash my hands. And then we're going to make the braising liquid that this is going to braise in the oven. I just turned the oven down to 275, which is what I want this to cook at. It was up to 350 because I have a couple carrot cakes I need to take out of the oven. So I'm going to take those out in just a second. But first, we have this tied up. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to make the braising liquid. So we have a stock, or just, you know, a saucepan right here. We're going to be doing a combination of soy sauce, mirin, which is like a Japanese cooking wine, sake, sugar. I have about 6 smashed garlic cloves here. You don't really have to worry about cutting them down any further than that, chopping them or anything like that, because you're just looking for the flavor. Same thing with, I had about 3-inch piece of ginger that I peeled. A good trick to peeling ginger is you just peel it with the back of a spoon. I have my Bloody Mary, obviously. And and then I have about 7 or 8 scallions, green onions that I just roughly chopped thick. So all this is going to do is flavor. So I have this on like medium low. We're going to take a cup of each of the soy sauce, the mirin, and the sake. So it's going to be a cup of each in here. So we got to cut it out. Woo! We're going to do, and really the only reason we even have to heat this up is because we want to dissolve the sugar. Otherwise, there's really no reason to heat it up. A cup, and then a cup of sake. This was like a fun little find at Publix. I didn't even have to buy a whole bottle of sake because they had just this literally called 1 cup sake. Now, let's see if I can get it open. I'm just going to cut it. So, I don't know if this is actually a cup or if it's, no, it's actually a cup. Awesome. That's great. And then I've got a half a cup of sugar here that I already measured out. So, we're going to, and then we're going to put this stuff in. So let me get a spoon, stir. So we're going to put in all of these, the green onions. They're falling everywhere. The ginger, the garlic. Let's see if I can get it all in the pot here. Okay, and we're just going to let this go for just a few minutes, just to basically dissolve the sugar. We don't even need to bring it to a boil. There's no like chemical reactions that have to happen with those ingredients or anything like that at a boil. So this I've been watching all day long. It needs to stay at a rolling boil all day. However, I usually am not in the kitchen all day long. I have been today because I'm making carrot cakes as well and all this. So I've just been kind of watching it here and there. I've been keeping the lid on. Not all the way, because if I keep the lid on all the way, it's going to boil over because all the heat is going to stay right in there. If I keep the lid off, then it's going to keep evaporating out. I'm going to keep having to add water, and that kind of defeats the purpose of a super concentrated broth like this. I've just been keeping it on. Had to add a little bit of water here and there, but nothing major. So this is on here. This all can go in the sink. I'm going to leave this out here. Okay, so I'm going to, before I get my hands dirty again, I'm actually going to take the carrot cakes out, which are really not a part of this whole video, but I made them anyways. So I'm going to put those up here for now, let those cool. I turned this down to 275 from the 350 that the carrot cakes were cooking at. So this is going to be at 275 shortly for the pork belly to go in. So now I'm going to take this pork belly, I'm going to put it in here, and you know, I don't even think that's going to be a proper size, but so I'm not going to be able to use the lid. I'm just going to use some aluminum foil to partially cover this. You want to vent it a little bit, which I'll show you in a second.
That looks so good.
You're like, bacon!
Exactly.
So pork belly is the cut of meat that bacon is made from. Bacon is made from pork belly like this, and then they cure it, whether they do a wet cure or a dry cure, for however many days, and they hang it to dry and yada yada yada, and then that's how you get raw bacon that you then cook. This is just completely uncured, unadulterated, fresh, local organic pork belly that I'm gonna cook as char siu pork for the ramen tonight. Again, like I said, I got that at Orlando Meats. I love that place. I get all of my, I make a lot of bone broth because it's super good for you. And when you make bone broth or any broths, you want to make sure that you're getting the very, very best bones you can. You don't want to just buy bones from the grocery store that are from whatever cut of meat that, you know, they've gotten in. I always make sure to get, you know, go to Orlando Meats or go somewhere and get local, organic, grass-fed bones, which is what I did for the pork bones here. That's how I get my beef bones. Same with chicken bones, anything like that. So, got that from Orlando Meats. I'm going to iFresh Market in over by Mills Colonial area. It's a big Japanese market. You've probably seen it if you drive by that area. To get some really, really good ramen noodles, as well as some mushrooms, a few other things that we need for the dish. I will record more of the kind of compiling everything together later when we've got the broth finished. We've got the char siu pork finished. We'll do the ramen noodles. I'm going to do a soft boiled egg, some enoki mushrooms, maybe some bok choy. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. This should be just about ready. This is feeling like it's warm enough. I don't see any, that's it. And it smells really good. And you actually don't want to boil this too much. You don't even want it to boil at all because you don't want to boil out all the sake right away. So this is just gonna come right over here, and I'm going to pour this right over, This is gonna get poured right over this. So this is going to braise, and if you don't cook much, or braising means to cook partially in liquid. So obviously when you boil something, you know that you're boiling it fully submerged in liquid. If you're braising something, you're cooking it partially in liquid for a long time. So the reason for that is that this is gonna absorb all of those flavors, and the moisture is gonna make it super, super tender. So this is generally a very tough cut of meat, especially because you have this thick skin, you have all the fat. So stuff like this needs to cook for a long time in order to become tender. So braising it in that liquid is going to give it the moisture, and when I cover it, it's going to give it like the steam to really envelop it in all that flavor and all that moisture, and it has to cook for a really long time. So it's going to cook for anywhere between 4 and 5 hours, depending on when it's done. There's really, you can't put an exact time on it because it's going to depend on your oven. It's going to depend on the specific cut of meat, how fatty it is, how meaty it is. So you just cook it till it's done. And you that's a level of expertise that comes with time, just knowing when something is ready, when something's done. So I'm gonna cover this with a little bit of foil. I'm gonna vent it though so that steam escapes a little bit. So I'm gonna put it like this, and I'm gonna leave just a little area open like that. That should be good. So that's just about down to the temperature it needs to be. So I'm gonna stick this in the oven now. Kind of heavy, and then we're just gonna let that go. I'm gonna turn it partially here and there because when you're braising something, it's not fully submerged in the liquid, so I want the meat to all equally kind of get that flavor that it's sitting in, not just the bottom part of the meat. So every maybe hour I'll probably turn it, and yeah, so this is gonna keep cooking. That's gonna cook. I'm gonna go to the store and get the rest of the stuff, and then we'll be back later.